Hi everyone, and thanks very much for joining my technique class in February. So we're going to be focusing on the Blessed Easter stamp. So when you get yours through, you will need to pop it all together. So you're going to get your sticker, your wooden block, and also your stamp. So all you need to do is just peel off the backing and then lay this on the block. And try to do it as straight as possible, and also making sure that you're fitting it onto the block in the way that you want. Just press down and that will be enough to hold that into place. And then you can peel off the sticker and then add this to the front. So again, because I pretty much know where I placed it on the inside, then I can get that pretty much lined up. And now we're ready to go and use it. So now that I've shown you how to mount your stamp onto the wooden block, these are the items that you will have received in your class kit. So you've received the Blessed Easter stamp set. You've also got some crystal effects, and then we've got 3 of the Stampin' Right markers. We have got Always Artichoke, we've got Crushed Curry, and we've also got Pumpkin Pie. You'll have also received one little strip of acetate, and that's because we're going to be using that as our palette. You will have also received your card blanks and also the matching envelopes. And you've also got a sheet of A4 Whisper white cardstock as well. So the first project that we're going to undertake is a really simple project. Where we're going to be stamping our Blessed Easter onto one of our card blanks, such as this, and then we're going to be adding the crystal effects to get this really nice glossy sheen. So, other items that you're going to find really helpful to be able to do this class are a Stays-On ink pad. And it does really need to be Stays-On, it has to be a permanent ink pad. And you'll also find it really useful to have either an aqua painter or a paintbrush to hand. Other things that are always useful are a bone folder to make sure that you can crease your card blanks really well. So to start this project, just take one of the card blanks and fold in half. It's already been pre-scored and everything else for you anyway, so just take your bone folder and crease that one down really well. Okay, just going to do that a little bit better. Stop it coming up to quite so much. We're then going to be taking our stamp and we're going to ink this one up with some Stays-On. You might also find it really useful to have a little wipe. You can see mine's already used. And that's because we're not going to be using the wording for this particular project. So just ink up the stamp with Stays-On, trying to be careful so that you're missing out the wording as much as possible. If you do get some ink onto it, which is likely, just take a little wipe and go across. I'm actually using polish wipes. I know that might sound bizarre, but sometimes baby wipes leave a lot of fibres behind, and I've just found that these type of wipes or certain cleaning wipes don't do that, so it's ideal really. Okay, and then we're going to stamp this to the side of the card, just like that. And then I'm going to ink it up again, but this time mainly using the top section of the stamp. And I'm going to stamp that one slightly lower down. So we've got it like that. Oh, I've got a bit of a mark, but I can always sort that one out later on. Okay, so now we've got the basis for our card. We're going to be bringing in our pens. Now, this particular project, I'm actually colouring directly onto the card blank. And actually that does give a really good effect, but I'm going to be showing you a few different techniques within this class. So the first one is direct. So we're going to be taking the lightest colour first, which is our crushed curry. And we're literally just going to be colouring pretty much into the middle of all of the petals. Not being particularly careful, just going round and doing that. Might just add a little bit more on here. And then this one. Always want to miss out. And now I can be going in with our pumpkin pie. This is a really gorgeous colour. And I'm just going to go around the outside, and I'm going to go to all of the tips as well. And just pretty much in the middle. I'm going to leave a little bit there so I can add in a bit more crushed curry. Being a bit more careful this time because obviously I want to make sure that I'm staying within the lines. And you can see that I'm going over the crushed curry so that I've got an outline. And this is just really so I can get like a two-tone tulip. And you want to do that all the way around until you've pretty much coloured them all in. Okay, so once I've done that, I'm then going to make sure that that's dry. So I'm going to be starting this end first, and I'm going to go back over the whole thing with the crushed curry. And this is so that I can blend in those colours, and it makes it more muted. Where you could see that that was quite bright orange before, it literally mutes that pumpkin pie. And it gives quite a nice effect. And that's going to go really well because our always artichoke is quite a muted green. So that's going to finish it off nicely. And like I said, it just also helps to blend in those colours together too. And now we can just go in with our always artichoke. I'm going to go in with a light colouring first of all. And you can see it's a really dark muted green. Again, you want to make sure that that dries. Don't worry about any white spaces, because actually it does make it look quite nice like that. So now that it's pretty much dry, I'm going to be going in with the journaling side of the pen, and I'm just going to go over some of the detail. So where it would naturally be darker, just so then I can add in a little bit of depth. It might not show up tremendously well on the camera. And if you want some sections to be quite wide, then obviously you can use the other end of the Stampin' white marker anyway. Okay, and there we pretty much have it. So we've now finished the colouring section. And one thing that you'll probably notice is that once we've put on the crystal effects, you'll really be able to see the definition of the different colours, which is really quite cool. So to take the crystal effects, yours are going to be new, but if yours is as well loved as mine, I just tend to take a pin or a needle and just put it through the end, and that's because it can get quite clogged up, so it just saves that. And then we're going to start from the top so that we then don't smudge any sections, and you're just going to wait until you've got a nice flow. If it's not flowing, like mine's not flowing right now, I'm just going to go in with my little pin or needle again, so it means that I've just got a little section which is clogged up again. It really should just flow really easily. You shouldn't have to press really hard. and if you do, it's because you've got a blockage. And then the last thing that you want to do is then start squeezing really hard so that you get a major blob. Once it starts to flow, you just want to gently, in circular motions, fill the area. Obviously the thicker that you do the layer, the longer it's going to take to dry. And once you've filled a section, you just lift and then move on to the next one as quickly as possible so that you're not then dripping. And you can see that mine's free flowing now, so I'm just trying to take the pressure off of the bottle because I don't want it to be too thick. It does look a little bit opaque when you first start putting it on, but it will dry completely clear. It will also dry raised, so obviously the thicker the layer, the more raised it will be. If you want it to have a pretty much a flat layer or very, very thin, you could, you know, use a paintbrush and spread it out that way. You will also need to make sure that you put this to the side to dry, where it's not going to get knocked at all. And you probably will need to leave it for at least a couple of hours as well. I have to put mine right out of the way because otherwise I get too impatient. And just doing the little stems as well. And that leads me on to another really good tip. If you feel that once you've gone to do like a bit more of a delicate area, and you feel like you've maybe have gone outside the lines a little bit more than you wanted to, so let's say that on my stem that I've got here, you can just take either a pin or a needle and you just take off some of that and drag it up, or drag it down. But you will need to do this, you know, fairly quickly after the application, and then you can just reduce that amount. And there you go. Pop that to one side, wait for it to dry, and then you can add whatever sentiment you would like to add. Now these cards are really great for being able to make in bulk and then adding sentiments afterwards. I mean, they really do lend themselves to a number of different occasions. So you could have happy birthday, you could have I'm sorry, you could have thinking of you, a number of different ones. But this one is already dry, so it just took a few hours to dry. But can you see what kind of effect those crystal effects really adds to it? It makes it look like a really stunning card. So that's the first one. And now I'm going to show you the same card again, but this time we're going to do a watercolour effect. And as you can see, the last one was happy birthday, this one says so sorry. But this particular stamp really does lend itself for a number of different occasions. And this is one of my favourite effects. It's really simple. Okay, so the next card that we're going to do is the watercolour effect. It's one of my favourite techniques and it looks really stunning with very little effort. So I've just got a couple of examples here. One of them I've stamped with so sorry. So as I mentioned earlier, this stamp really does lend itself for pretty much any sentiment that you want to use. So first of all, you're going to take one of the card blanks provided within your kit, and again we're going to ink up using StazOn. And you can use the wording within this if you want to, but we're just going to miss that one out. And same again, if you do get any ink from the wording, just take your little wipe and remove that. And as I mentioned before, I'm using a little polish wipe, just because then it doesn't leave any excess fibres or anything else behind. We're going to stamp this in the same way, so to the side of the card, and then ink up again, and this time we're just really inking up about the first 2/3 of the stamp. And again, just going to do that towards the bottom of the card. There we go. And then you do want to use the little piece of window sheet that I've provided within your kit, and the pens. So you're just going to scribble on each of the colours, and then this is going to be used as our palette. And then we can you can either use a paintbrush or an aqua painter if you've got one of those. And for this we're just going to pick up a little bit of the colour, and you're going to go to the darkest areas first. So I just need to add some more water, and if you do need to put more water onto your aqua painter, you're just going to squeeze, and then it would just have a little drop of water that will come out. So now I can spread that colour. And this is one of the reasons why you really need to use the StazOn, because if we were to use any of the other colours, for example, they would just bleed and then you would lose some of that detail. So again, I'm not being particularly exact with this, so I can always go in and add a little bit more detail later on. So that makes a really good start. When it comes to the tulips, I'm going to pick up some of that crushed curry and just literally go over all of the tulips. I'm not going to worry if I've got any white space, because that's going to be covered later on. And technically, really, I mean, that looks pretty stunning in itself. You could just leave it as simple as that if you wanted to, but we are going to go in and add some more detail. So we're going to pick up some of that pumpkin pie, and we're going to really go to the outside of each of the petals. Just picking up a little bit more again. And also I'll be adding it to the tips of all of the tulips as well, because naturally it would be darker in those areas as well. So one of the reasons I really enjoyed in this technique is when I was at school, I was with some extremely talented artists, and my artistic ability has never really kind of been up to scratch. And yet when I do this, it really does give me that kind of impression that I'm being very artistic, but kind of cheating, if you like. Okay, so I do want a little bit more of the pumpkin pie, so I'm just going to use a bit more of that onto the palette. And then I can just go ahead and pick up a little bit more. And it really is as simple as that. And if you want to go in and add more detail, then you can do so. You can literally just build this up layer by layer until you're really happy with the result. So for example, if I wanted to go and add a little bit more detail for the leaves, I can just add the sections that would now naturally be darker. And you can see how much of a difference that begins to make on the project here. So just bringing in those other ones. Now there is one other little tip that I would like to give you, and that's if you want to create a background effect like I've done on these two cards, this one being a little bit more subtle, you can do that by adding another colour. Now it needs to be a very, very light, subtle colour. So something like soft sky, for example. So this one isn't in your kit, but this is an extra step if you want to do that. So I've just cleaned off the window sheet, and you want to scribble on, excuse the noise, some of that. And then you're just going to pick it up with your paintbrush or your aqua brush and just go around the outside. And you want to do that all the way around until you're completely happy. So as you can see from this one, it just adds a really, really nice shadowing effect. Now again, these cards lend themselves to any kind of occasion, so you could make a batch of these and then add these sentiments a lot later on. This one is one of my favourites. The So Sorry set is brilliant because it has a number of different options that you could add to the inside of the card. So sorry for your loss, you've been ill, forgive me, times are tough right now, I was thoughtless, for the loss of your beloved pet, you know, any of things like that. So a really, really good set for you to be able to have a number of different options. So there you go, that's how to do the watercolour technique, and we're then going to be moving on to our next project. So there you go, so we've now done card 2. So we've got our first one, that one's drying nicely now, so that's got our crystal effects. We've now done our watercolour technique, and that's going to lead us on really nicely to the next card. And again, this one hasn't been finished with a sentiment. This one's going to be waiting for the right time to send it. But this one is a decoupage card. Again, this stamp set really lends itself to having a bit of depth and definition. So for this one, you're going to need to stamp it a number of times and build up the layers. So you will find this on my blog as well, but here is a breakdown of how I've done things. So layer 1, you're going to just do that directly onto your card blank. Now you don't have to follow my pattern, you could work out your own decoupage layers, but this is how I've gone ahead and done mine. So layer 2, I've looked at the image and basically thought, right, okay, so these leaves would be in the background, obviously this is in the background. So my next layer really needs to have this kind of section of the leaf on this one here raised up, as well as some of the flowers. So everything that I've coloured would be the next section that we're going to cut. So you stamp it out again, you're going to cut out the little leaf. So for example, I've got one done here. So that would be the section that you're then going to cut out. We'd also cut this section out here, and then all of these parts of the petals to the tulips. Layer 3, because we're building this one up again, is going to have these sections cut out, and then our very last layer is just this petal on the tulip. And again, that's because if you look at the image, let's just have a look at this one here, this one would naturally be the one that's closest to you. It's the one that's going to draw out the most. So go ahead and stamp out your images 4 times onto your Whisper White cardstock. So once you've stamped it out 4 times, you'll have stamped it onto your card blank. That's your first layer, and as you can see, I've done this one in a portrait as opposed to landscape, and that's because this is going to be the main focus of the card, and then stamped it 3 times onto the Whisper White cardstock. So the first thing to do again is just to use your little sheet of your little window sheet as your palette. Excuse the squeaky sound. And then either using your paintbrush or your aqua painter, whichever one is easier for you, you're just then going to do exactly the same thing. So even though we're going to be putting other layers onto the card, I still start it off as normal. And then that means that, you know, if I've not cut it particularly exact or whatever, it's not really going to matter, because I've still got the base layer already painted and ready to go. So I'm using this in exactly the same way that we did before. So I'm adding the crushed curry basically to the petals and everything else first. And that gives me a nice basis. And now I can go in and add in the pumpkin pie. Now of course these are the colours that you've got within the class kit, but you could use any colours for this. And you can mimic any of the styles of tulips. I like the striped ones personally. I find them really stunning. So you know, you could just have a look around and use those as your muse. Now the other thing that you can do if you really want to make this look a little bit more vibrant is you can use the direct technique. So I prefer doing this when the card is a little bit more damp, because then I'm going to find it easier to blend it afterwards. But it just means that I can go straight in with the pumpkin pie, go over certain sections, and then what I will do, oh, just went outside the lines. Always one. Is I'm then going to pick up the crushed curry, and now I can blend all of that in again. And that basically just gives you a little bit more of a vibrant colour, really, as opposed to it just all being a bit more muted. Okay, but obviously we're still going to be painting the other ones anyway. So next you're going to bring in your sheet, add some more colour onto your palette, and we're going to do the same things again. Now it's a little bit easier if all you do is paint the areas that you need to cut, because then it means that you know which layers you're going to do. So I'm not going to bore you, I'm just going to go ahead and do that and then come back when it's done. So now that we've completed these stages, it just means that we can now cut them out. It does make it easier if you've got a really good pair of scissors. So our little Stampin' snips are fantastic. They've got a really fine point towards the end, which does make it a lot easier as well. And you just want to cut round, you know, and cut all the little sections out. You might find it easier to do a rough cut first and then go back in and get all the little intricate sections. It's also a lot easier if you move the paper and the card around rather than just the scissors, as I'm doing here. And again, you want to make sure that you then cut all the sections of every single layer out, and then I'm going to show you what we need to do thereafter. All of our little layers here, and I've already gone ahead and just popped Stampin' Dimensionals on to the back of them. For the ones that aren't completely full, so these ones are full, you can just add the Stampin' Dimensionals in their entirety. Then all I do is just cut them in half or cut little strips, and then they'll easily fit together. Once you've done that, you're just going to remove the backing. So same as you would for adhering anything down, really. If you've got a little section that you think is overhanging, just push it in. You can just manipulate it a little bit. The smaller the pieces are, the more fiddly they get. And then you can just start to layer it all up by lining it up with your image. And I've done mine in sections, so you can see this is layer 2, layer 3, and then layer 4. Again, just lining it up with the image that's already been stamped. And by this stage it's really quick. But but you can already begin to see the difference in the depth that you've actually got for this project. And like I said, our little layer sheet will be on my blog anyway at www.getcreativewithtraci.co.uk, so you've always got that as a reference. And then our last little section is the last petal on this tulip. There you go. And then really, because I just want to finish off this project and make it look really professional, that's why I've added the crystal effects. And on this one you can see that I've also gone ahead and I've added the soft sky in the background. And you could easily do that, but I wanted to leave this one just so you could see the difference. To add the crystal effects, I always find it easier to do this afterwards because I don't want crystal effects on all of the sections. So what I will be doing is adding it to the leaves. And all the, basically probably about the top 2 layers more than anything else. So it then just highlights more of the details as well, so just really doing the top layers. And then inside for the leaves, the sections that would normally protrude a little bit more are the bits that I'm going to highlight. Now, one of the things that I also did discover the first time round that I did this, and it's still pretty much the same now, is that if I look at this, I then can discover where I need to go back and colour. So obviously the leaves are going to be inside, so naturally if something is further away from you, it's going to be a little bit darker. So I'm just going to add a little bit more detail by making that a little bit darker again. And then maybe once I've done this, you'll see what I mean. So there you go. See how much of a difference that kind of makes? Now once you're letting this dry, you will need to lay it flat, because if you've got it upright, all of the crystal effects will start to flow down to the end. And I'm not quite sure if I put this up, can you see that where I've been holding it up, it's already started to do that with this one. So if that happens, you can just put it down like this for a moment or two, and that will then let it pull down to the other side, and then lay it flat, and then that can dry properly. But also, if I'm this close up, you can see how much depth that has and how much detail. It really is beautiful. And really, it didn't take very long to get that kind of effect whatsoever, but I think this stamp in particular really lends itself to have that. So popping that one to one side, this is the one that we've done before. Again, if I maybe move it a little bit closer, can you begin to see where you've got that detail with the soft sky? So yeah, so you've got three completely different techniques with this stamp. Again, showing you how you can also use the crystal effects to add highlights, to give definition, and also just to bump up the quality a little bit more as well. So hopefully you've enjoyed this technique class. If you do want to join them, I do them every single month towards the end of the month. You'll find all of the details on my website at www.getcreativewithtraci.co.uk. There is a cut-off date because I obviously need to make sure that all the products get to you in time for the class. I also have a physical class. You can come and actually join us and get to do this face-to-face, and that's held in Painton in Devon. So again, do check out the website for more information. And thanks very much for joining me. I really do have a lot of fun you know, finding new techniques to teach you and all that type of stuff. So thanks for popping by. Thanks very much for helping to know all the different things that you want to learn. If you do have any more suggestions, then do get in touch, and I will see you again next month. Alright, take care. Bye.